Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, discussing the town up or down since 2015. I'm Richard Wood and you're tuned into the Prematch show in partnership with our good friends at the Greyhound pub in Ipswich. This is the Fleetwood away edition, and joining me once again, my good buddy Seb Brown. Seb, 2 northern away days in in a week. You must be cock-a-hoop.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah, it's a lovely little jaunt up to Morecambe last weekend. I don't think it's going to be quite as nice and picturesque this weekend, but yeah, I'm very spoilt with Fleetwood away, and then I'm heading back down south the following weekend for Pompey. So I'm being spoilt at the moment.
But less Blue Monday company this coming weekend, though.
Very true, yeah. I'm flying the flag solo. I think, bless him, even Craig thought this one's a bit too much, having done pretty much every away ground so far this season. Yeah. And obviously the rest of you guys just draw a compass round Ipswich and think I'm not venturing that far north of the wall.
Yeah, not twice in a week. So, but yeah, hopefully you'll be meeting up with Mullet, who we gave plenty of mention to. So yeah, and hopefully, folk, if you are listening to this on your journey up to Fleetwood to go and see, go and see Seb maybe. Then let us know and give us a tweet or something, or ping us a comment or something like that. We always like to know when folk are listening or where they are, as Ben mentioned last week. So we'll be talking about Fleetwood away. It's a weird fixture, this one, only because we will talk about why our shirt, we both got picked unilaterally, both picked the same shirt, didn't we? Unilaterally, do I mean that? We independently picked the same shirt. For those who are listening on the pod, this is, rather than watching on YouTube, the 1920 home shirt, the chevrons with monochrome Magical Vegas, where they figured out that it looked terrible if it was printed in the proper colours. So we'll talk about the significance of that shirt later on. Let's do a few bits and pieces of news. And not much really going on at the moment. Obviously, we did the midweek Q&A with Mikey, Joe and Dave, so they did a lot of a bit of a news recap there, so that show's still available, so give that a listen. One thing I guess we need to talk about is Pack Out Portman Road and the Lincoln game, the much delayed Lincoln game, the last of that trilogy. That is on Tuesday evening, and you can still get tickets, Seb. I'm not sure. It's kind of like a parish announcement. I'm not sure there's much angle that we can put on this.
No, there's not really anything else to say, is it? I think they say it's currently over 24,000 seats sold. So obviously it's coming off the back of those 3 home games where it was a promotion. Was it 40 quid for the 3 games? But due to COVID and some questionable shenanigans, perhaps by Lincoln, it got pushed back to the start of March. But yeah, for 24,000, it's going to be the last. Well, hopefully not the last under the lights game at Portman Road. If we can finish in the playoffs, we might get a midweek game there. But it's definitely going to be the last league game under Portman Road lights so far this season. So get yourselves down there, and the more that go in there, we get a nice little boost on our club card points for this club shop, don't we?
Yeah, we can buy more football shirts, can't we, Seb? In terms of news, it did come up in the live Q&A, but we could talk about it now. ITFC Women, obviously, a lot of support that we're putting towards that team because they're brilliant, frankly, and lots of exciting stuff going on. Not least the FA Cup quarter-final draw that was made on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, Tuesday morning
against West Ham at home. So full details on that to come, I'm sure. But Sunday, 20th March, and hopefully a new record attendance there. Worth mentioning that the team faced Bridgewater on the weekend. Bridgewater, a decent team, currently 5th in the league. And last time out in October, it took a last-minute goal. I think it was Natasha Thomas from a corner, Bonnie Horde corner. Very dramatic conclusion to that fixture. So Bridgewater, to borrow a Mickism, no mugs. And we wish ITFC Women all the very best for their league campaign. It's very easy to get distracted by the FA Cup, but they are still in the hunt for a top spot in the Southern Premier Division as well. And so we obviously wish them well. Abby Lafayette, Lucy O'Brien, who we sponsor, but it'd be good if they had a league and cup double, wouldn't it, Seb?
Absolutely, yeah. And that game against Southampton is creeping ever closer on the horizons into the title decider. They've still got, is it 5 games in hand? I think they've still got over the women at the moment, haven't they? Southampton. It's something crazy like that. I think Oxford are a couple of games in hand as well. So yeah, the FA Cup's been a lovely distraction. Obviously, West Ham are a top flight side in the Championship. So that's the Super League. Sorry, so that's going to be a great test. But back to business this weekend, and hopefully they can get the 3 points on the board to continue keeping that buffer between them and Southampton.
Yeah, I think it's 4 games in hand that Southampton have.
4, okay.
Oxford, I believe, have 1. Though that league table I'm looking at might be a bit out of date. They've just got to keep winning. And we talked about this, the interview, which is still available if you want to listen to us chat about the Southampton game that happened in the past, with Liz Smith, Paige Peake, and Natasha Thomas. But the league campaign is still very much on. These games in hand. There's not a huge amount that Ipswich can do about those, and Southampton are beatable, as we demonstrated at least on penalties, but we could have done in extra time as well. So all the very best to ITFC women, and fingers crossed we've got a victory to be talking about on the Flagship show on Monday morning. More details about that later on as well. I think that's it, Seb. We mentioned under 23s very briefly. They're doing all right, aren't they?
Yeah, they won again, didn't they? So top of the league. I think El Mazzuni played, Vincent Young played, Tyree Simpson bagged a couple of goals. So they're in a really, really good run of form at the moment, aren't they? They're doing Kieran Dyer and John McGreal doing absolutely superb bit of work there. And I guess good to see El Mazzuni and Vincent Young get some minutes under their belt. But we'll come on to our team selection at the end of the Fleetwood preview, I guess.
Let's talk about Fleetwood now. And tell us about where Fleetwood find themselves in the League One table, Seb.
So they are currently 19th in the league, 33 points, played 33 games, won 7, drawn 12 and lost 14, scored 47 goals, conceded 58, and of recent form, they've got no wins in their last 8 games. So we said this, to be fair, me and Ben last week coming up to the Morecambe game. This is the kind of game with a side not in great form that we really, really should be looking to sort of tick 3 points off there. They're just outside the relegation zone. They've got a game or 2 in hand over most of those beneath them, because during Storm, Eunice or Gladys or whatever it was, I think they had 2 consecutive weekends of waterlogged postponements for fixtures. So they've got a few games in hand to try and pull themselves clear of that relegation zone. Obviously, they lost to us 2-1 earlier in the season at Portman Road. It was the Selena last minute Brett Johnson pumping the air after a Danassian pullback. And I think, was that the only time we won 2 games on the bounce under Paul Cook? So we beat Pompey in the midweek before, battered them 4-0. I think that was the only time we won 2 games back-to-back. And that was the Chaplin opened the scoring just after half-time. Callum Morton equalised, 8 minutes to go. So we were all thinking, oh, here we go again. But then Selena won it with that like a half volley from round about the penalty spot, didn't he? It was an absolutely great finish. But they are certainly struggling this season.
Yeah, we're mentioning that 8 games without a win, 5 draws in there. So they're quite a resilient team, but just lacking the quality maybe to turn some of those draws into victories. And obviously Portsmouth last weekend conceded last-minute equalisers as well. So there's some frailty there. We'll talk about the personnel. There's all kind of injuries.
They've got serious injury problems, but they are more than capable of pulling out a result. They've actually doubled Rotherham so far this season. I don't think there's going to be many sides that are going to do that, but they've doubled them. Yeah, they beat them home and away, so they can pull out a performance when they need to. Their home form completely matches their overall league position. They're 19th in the league, played 16 at Highbury, won 5, drawn 5, lost 6. 26 goals scored, 25 goals conceded, but they have, like you said, a lot of draws. They've only actually lost 1 of their last 5 at home. So although they're not winning or picking up points, they can sort of stifle teams and look to grind out a draw here and there.
Yeah, worth mentioning. Let's talk about it now. Our record. It's weird to say Highbury. It is Highbury, isn't it?
It is. I thought it was strange. Yeah.
Was an Arsenal fan, I believe, or is an Arsenal fan. I'm not sure if he's still involved there. But it's a 1 win, 1 defeat kind of situation there. But both of us with the 1920 shirt, that of the 1-0, we were there again with Mullet and Craig, weren't we?
And it was so easy, wasn't it? It was so straightforward. We were. Yeah, did we go 5 points clear? And they did the hand holding at the end, and it was so easy, wasn't it? Luke Garber had a free kick, he smashed in, and the keeper spilt it, and Jackson followed up, and then I think he missed a penalty, didn't he? Yeah, in injury time, and we were 5-6 points clear. It must have been November, October time. 4 points clear.
4 points clear.
Game in hand
with 8 goals better goal difference, and 1 game having played one game less than Wickham, who were second.
It was so
Fleetwood at the
easy.
time were third. And I mean, we'll talk about the manager in a second. Joey Barton was the manager at the time when we played them, as you said. And
And they finished in
yeah,
the playoffs that year, didn't they? Joey
time
Barton got them to the
flies.
playoffs. They finished in the playoffs that season, so they were a good side at the time. You know, they were neat and tidy and they looked okay. But I remember being a fairly professional performance from us. I remember Nolan being very, very good in central
Wasn't
midfield,
there
and
some aggro down the left hand side as we were looking? Didn't someone? Wasn't there a bit of a scrap?
I think that might have been the following game last year. I can't remember. I think Edwards might have taken somebody out.
I
I
think
can't
Edwards might.
remember.
That rings a bell.
Okay.
Worth mentioning. You mentioned Paul Cook. Not a great turnout at Fleetwood in March last year, where we were defeated 2-0 goals from Callum Connolly, no less, from a long throw in, and
Yep.
he headed, and Gerard Garner as well. So there's our mixed record up at Fleetwood. Talk to us about, well, I guess we need to talk about last time out because it affects selection and one of the ITFC connections who we won't be seeing. Tell us about what happened midweek, Seb.
Yeah, so they played Wigan. There were a round of fixtures, weren't there, midweek for some of the games in hand to start to get eaten up. They lost 2-0 at the DW, still DW, at Wigan, whatever it's called these days. Wigan bossed all the game. If you look at the stats, they bossed absolutely everything, the possession, the shots, the shots on target, the corners. They absolutely dominated the game. So I don't think they really got out of first gear. Fleetwood only had 2 shots on target, but the big news was right at the death, Joe Garner. It was his first appearance after 3 months out. I think he had a shoulder injury. So first appearance after 3 months out. We'll come on to their striking options later, but they're already missing probably their number one striker. So they finally got a bit of respite with Joe Garner coming back into the side. And yeah, he got sent off, didn't he? A straight red. So it's a 3-match ban. I've not actually seen the incident. You've seen it, haven't you? What did he do?
It's a weird coming because the trouble is the camera is quite zoomed out. I think it's McLean and Garner kind of have a bit of a set to, and I think Garner is on the deck and McLean grabs him or Garner kicks out at him and they kind of clash, and then there's like head to head kind of thing, and it's just handbags. And to be honest, if you were to predict before the match who would be involved in such an altercation, I think you'd get very short odds on these two players. But as you say, this just exacerbates the lack of options that Stephen Craney has, and worth at this stage, I guess, getting people up to speed on Craney, a name possibly familiar to folk who remember his spell at Blackpool, where he made most of his career appearances as a left back. But he's replaced Simon Grayson, who's now on the managerial merry-go-round once again, Seb.
Yeah, so he replaced him in November. He got the job on a caretaker basis and did okay. So they made him a permanent manager in December. He's played 17, won 4, drawn 7, lost. Sorry, managed. Managed 17. That's why you're on the ball.
Yeah.
1 4, drawn 7, lost 6, 1.17 points per game. He used to be an academy coach there, so he kind of stepped up from the behind the scenes kind of role. And like you say, he's known for his time at Blackpool, Leeds, Celtic, Wigan as a tough defender. But he's doing all right there.
Yep. Scottish under-21 international, I think, as well, based on the very brief research that I did. Yeah, so interesting one there. So, I mean, in terms of the threat, Seb, this is Fleetwood are pretty typical in respect of a lower mid-table team. We're not going to expect masses of possession, so it could be very similar fixture to Cheltenham and Morecambe in that respect. And there is certainly the source of the goals, most of the goals, is not a surprise either. Tell us about their possession and where the goals come from.
Yeah, so like I said, they've scored 47 goals, which is 1.4 goals per game. They tend to create 1.2 big chances per game. So they're basically taking the chance they create, but they're just simply not creating enough in match. They average just under 11 shots per game with 4 on target, and their possession is 47.7%, which is the 16th sort of in the league table. So pretty much it mirrors exactly where they currently sit in the league. This is not a side that's going to look to boss and knock it around. You know, they like to keep the ball in their own half. They like to launch counter attacks. We'll come on to sort of the style of play when we go through the predicted lineup, but they'll be happy to sit back, let us have the ball, and it's going to become like the Morecambe game, like the Cheltenham game. We're going to have to find ways to break them down, because they'll happily let us have the ball and pass it around in non-threatening areas and look to get that low block and stifle us and try and frustrate us.
Yeah, and Talk to us about set pieces, Seb.
That's their threat, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, from a defensive point of view, first they've conceded 58 goals, so it's averaging 1.8 goals per game that they concede. So, hopefully, the chances are that's why they are where they are in the league. Let's be honest, only 5 clean sheets all season, but set pieces they are very very good at. They've got 16 goals from set pieces so far this season, which is 34% of their total, and it's all down to one man. I remember we mentioned him on the October show, the home game. It's Danny Andrew, the left back. He's got 6 goals and 6 assists. He's ever present so far this season with 33 appearances, and he is their real threat from corners and free kicks, and they've got a bit of height in the team, so that's really one to look out for.
And I don't know whether that long throw specialist is still there as well, but that's obviously been a threat before. And yeah, I don't think there's anything that's going to be too surprising to folk listening or watching out there in terms of how Fleetwood will set themselves up. Should we talk about some of the arrivals before we talk about formations and personnel that we would expect on the weekend? Should we talk about who came in and left? Because again, the Ipswich Town links, one that folk will obviously be fully aware of, actually 2 maybe as well, but there's a third in there. It's been
I didn't realise till I was doing the research. So they had quite a busy January. They had 8 arrivals and 6 departures. Obviously, we all know Toto Enciala is there. He was dropped to the bench following the 3-3 game against Portsmouth, so he didn't feature against Wigan in midweek. But would we be surprised if he came back into the weekend? And I guess we know he will either have an absolute worldie and be incredible, or he'll be awful and make a mistake in the first 2 minutes that will mean his head's gone. So we'll see if he comes back into the side. Ellis Harrison joined from Portsmouth. I remember you and me being at Portsmouth away in December 2019, and he gave, was it Chambers and Enciala, an absolutely torrid time, didn't he? So he, again, might have a bit of a point to prove. He's kind of their only hope up front now that Joe Garner's suspended. So he'll definitely be starting through the middle, I would have thought. And Josh Harrop, do you remember him, of the red card away at somebody? And I think he had a shot that cleared the stadium, and he was, I don't know, we signed him in January. Was it Shrewsbury? Yeah, or Wimbledon, I'm thinking. I don't know. We signed him on loan, didn't we, in January last year, and ex-Man United. So we thought, this is going to be decent. And then he got COVID, so he couldn't make his debut for like 2 weeks, and then when he came in, I think he was just relatively awful, wasn't he? So I didn't realise he was actually there. He won't feature; he's injured, so he won't be involved on Saturday. But he is amongst their roster. And I guess they had some of the departures as well, which a name we were maybe hoping to be linked with was Jay Matete. Obviously, we saw him go up against Morsey in the home game back in October. There were some transfer deadline day rumours, weren't there, that we might potentially make a move for him because he was coming out of contract this summer. But Sunderland swooped and got him on I think it was a 3-year deal in the end. James Hill, their young prospect, a young centre-half, he was signed by Bournemouth for just over £1 million, so he moved up the pyramid, and that's quite a big loss to them. We'll come on to the centre-backs in a minute. And Callum Morton, the guy that scored against us early in the season, got recalled. Yeah, I liked him.
He was excellent.
He was recalled by West Brom and then sent straight out to Peterborough. So one of these January transfers where, they think they can do a job further up the pyramid, so the club recall them and send them straight back out. So striker-wise, they are struggling.
And worth mentioning, Toto's got 2 assists, including one on his debut as well. So he's added something to his game there. But as you mentioned, dropped midweek, so an interesting one there. But I think it would be a strange one for him not to face his former club, because there's always that jeopardy of the ex-player, isn't there, coming back to haunt his old club. So
I would have thought so, yeah. I mean, the other of the 2 centre-halves, they've got a guy called Tom Clark there who's 34. So, logically, you might want to give him a bit of a rest and look to bring Toto back in to hopefully prove a point against the club that let him go.
Yeah, Tom Clark's a name that's been around for a while. I'm trying to remember where I know him from. Preston, was it? And yeah, I think he was at Preston. So
34 now, so a bit susceptible to pace. I mean, from a formations point of view, they've kind of things have changed quite a lot throughout the last 6 games. I guess when you see a side kind of struggling towards the bottom of the table, managers will try different things, won't they, to try and stumble across some sort of formula or winning run. So in the last 6 games, they've played 4-3-3 3 times, 5-3-2 twice, and then they played 4-1-4-1 against Wigan on Tuesday night. But the personnel they have in the 4-1-4-1 system allows them to change it to a 4-3-3 if needed, because you can push the two wide midfielders into a front 3. But when you look at the heat map and the average player positions from Tuesday night, it was all over the shop. So, if we assume they're going to go for a 4-1-4-1 like they played against Wigan, because their hands are tied by the amount of injuries they've got.
Yeah, I'm just looking at MK Dons, who they got a draw against a few weeks back, and it was the 4-1-4-1 there. So I'd expect that possibly to be the route that they go down.
Yeah.
And and in terms of the selection, I mean, some really obvious ones there. Talk us through, and the keeper's pretty much as straightforward,
Keepers a
isn't it?
guarantee. Yeah, Alex Carnes will play. He's played all the games so far this season. Kieran O'Hara is the backup, and Harry Wright, who obviously they signed from us when we released him in the summer, is merely a EFL trophy game. He had a loan spell out as well, but he's not a backup keeper or anything. Right back's likely to be Callum Johnson. He's made 26 appearances so far this season with 4 goals and 1 assist. He's on loan from Pompey. Tom Clark, we've mentioned. I guess we might be expecting NCR to come in maybe for him. Zach Jules has made 15 appearances since joining on loan from MK Dons in January. And as we said, Danny Andrew, the left back, is the key one in terms of the set piece delivery, the corners, the crossing. He's one of their major sort of creative outlets. In terms of how they like to play, we'll come on to the midfielder stuff in a minute, but in terms of how they like to play, they tend to be a short passing side. I didn't go to the Fleetwood at home game, but I seem to remember people saying they weren't a long ball side by any stretch of the imagination. I think they were knocking it around quite nicely. They averaged 302 short passes per game, which is 77% of their total passing. So they don't necessarily go long. They like to sort of knock it around and keep it short. They like to get shots off from range. 47% of their shots come from outside the box, and they've scored 9 goals from 168 attempts. They like to attack down the right-hand side. Like I said, Callum Johnson there with 4 goals and 1 assist. He likes to get forward and get involved in the attacking play. And as we said earlier, they do like to keep the ball in their own half and sort of look to exploit the quicker players with either killer through ball to break the lines. They're happy to keep the ball, knock it around their half of the pitch, and then go for those killer balls when applicable.
Yeah, the goal they scored at Portman Road was a pretty good move from what I recall. It was well finished off by Morton at the end, but yeah, they did surprise me there in terms of that trying to pass the ball through us, which I guess you don't necessarily expect from a team like Fleetwood. I like the holding midfielder, Seb, Callum Camps.
Yeah, I like him.
Rochdale. Tell us about him.
Yeah, decent player, isn't he? He played that role on Tuesday night. I think for parts of the season, he's played slightly further forward, but he's doing a job there at the moment. They've got major injury problems. So normally you'd probably have Daniel Batty or Jordan Rasita sitting in that position, but obviously they're both out injured. They won't feature. So Callum Camps came in and he played that role. He's got 2 goals and 4 assists from 21 appearances, and he's the one that likes to launch those through balls to really look to exploit either the wide players or whoever's playing in the central striking position. Right midfield is likely to be Shaden Morris, 21 appearances, 2 goals, no assists. He really likes to hug the touchline. He's an out-and-out chalks on the boot kind of winger. He'll hug that touchline and look to run all day and get the crosses in. Carl Johnston is currently playing as their central sort of more defensive midfielder of the two. Now, he's actually a defender by trade, but because of the injuries, like I just said, to Batty, Josh Harrop, Rosita, he's the one doing a bit of a job in there for them. Harrison Biggins will start in the other central midfield position, 28 appearances, 5 goals, 1 assist. He likes to drop slightly wide left, pick the ball up. So hopefully we can find a little bit of space in the centre of the park for Morsey and presumably Backinson to kind of work their way into. And on Tuesday night, they played Daniel Butterworth at left midfield. Now, he's actually a forward on loan from Blackburn. No goals, no assists, but he's only played 5 games. He played in that left-hand side. And as I said earlier, in the 4-1-4-1, with Shaden Morris on the right and Daniel Butterworth on the left, they can easily just simply push up the pitch to make it a tighter midfield 3 of Camps, Johnston and Biggins, and they can really look to get forward in support of Ellis Harrison.
And it's quite Shaden Morris, I think, is quite young. I think he might be 19. Butterworth's quite young as well. So there's some inexperience there. I'm trying to find a Lord of the Rings gag about Harrison Biggins or Christopher Biggins. I can't. Yeah, I didn't have enough time to prepare for that one. But there's creativity there, isn't there? But possibly limited experience and big players missing from that midfield as well, Seb. And that's, again, part of the story as to where Fleetwood find themselves.
Very much so, yeah. Bad injuries at central midfield and bad injuries at centre half. They've got Paddy Lane, who's been a regular so far this season. He wasn't in the 18 against Wigan. He made his comeback in the Portsmouth game, but then he wasn't in the 18 against Wigan. And in their pre-match, we're recording this on Thursday night, in their pre-match sort of press conference today, they've said he's back on the grass. He could come into contention. He's a midfield player who likes to sort of get forward and create things. Anthony Pilkington, former Norwich, isn't he? We were linked with him, weren't we, when
When he
Lambert
was at
had that
Cardiff.
window with Alan Judge and stuff. He's a bench option these days. And they had a young lad called Kyan Hayes. He came off the bench apparently against Wigan on Tuesday night. Did really well. He got praised by the manager after the game. So there is a thought amongst their forum stuff that he might come in and get a chance. He's kind of a quick wide player who could come in and support the main striker.
Yeah, just going back to Pilkington very briefly, he's, as you said, the majority of his appearances have come off the bench, but he's actually scored 3 goals in the last kind of couple of months or so. So he is a really good option for them. And as obviously we mentioned, the kind of limited experience there. So he's a player that has a lot of career appearances, at championship level, and is a useful person to rely on. You mentioned Kean, was it?
Kyan Hayes.
Kean Hayes.
He's a young 20-year-old through the academy. He came on. The only reason I'm saying he might be involved, he got very much praise from Craney after the game against Wigan. I think he came on at half-time in that game, and apparently, by all accounts, he did pretty well for himself. So I'm guessing there's a theory he could come in. But if Paddy Lane is fit, he's the more likely to come back in.
Yeah, so he's actually started quite a few games, 7 games for Hayes. But yeah, young and no goals, no assists, but obviously a young guy trying to make his way in the game. The attacking options is where Pilkington, I guess, could do a job as an attacker if needed, but there is issues up front in terms of, we mentioned one Garner. There are 2 Garners at Fleetwood, and the other one's missing as well.
Yeah, injured since he got an ankle injury. I think it was on Boxing Day. So he's not featured since then. So he was the guy that scored against us, one of the goals against us last March. So he won't be involved. Joe Garner is suspended. So they are kind of putting all their hopes on Ellis Harrison, who's got 2 goals in 10 appearances. I think he scored in his debut, actually, having signed from Portsmouth. But he's got, 2 goals in 10 appearances. And if you look at the heat maps, what's quite interesting, he seems to be dropping quite deep and allowing the 2 wider players. So if we assume it's going to be Morris on the right and Butterworth on the left, he's kind of dropping deeper and allowing them to kind of push forward. So that's an interesting tactic, because at ours he was kind of a out and out focal point, wasn't he? Paul Hurst,
aerial threat.
Yeah, in a 4-1-4. Lambert didn't really use him, but Hurst tried to use him in a 4-1-4-1 as like a focal point to hold the ball up and get other people involved. So we know what he can do. Obviously, he might have a point to prove against us. He bullied us, like we said in that game at Portsmouth a couple of years ago. So he's their main threat, and hopefully we can look to keep him quiet.
Yeah, other than I'm just looking through the squad now. Otherwise, there is very limited options.
Yeah, well, Butterworth, like I said, is a forward. The guy on loan from Blackburn, he is a forward. So I guess they probably signed him hoping to add some competition to Harrison. But then, given the injuries they've experienced, he's having to do a job at left midfield at the moment.
And Shaden Morris, I think, can play up there as well. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. But yeah, I think 4-1-4-1 seems inevitable because of those absentees. So there you go. In terms of Ipswich and how we'll face off to them, I'm not expecting a great deal of change. I think possibly.
Oh, don't you think? I think the front 3 will change after the Morecambe game, surely.
Well, yeah, sorry. That was a given. The front 3 is always subject to change. I kind of fit everywhere else. The one thing I was going to talk about is Dominic Thompson, whether he starts left wing back. Obviously, Matt Penny, I think, has returned from injury and is available. But yeah, let's talk about the front 3. You singled out Tom Clark, if he starts, as being a little bit lacking in pace. So does that suggest to you Jackson?
I would have Jackson. I think Selena deserves a start, because I thought he played well when he came on. Yeah, he came on. Didn't he change the game for the better for us? So I'd like Selena and Jackson to be 2 of the 3, and then who the other one is, I don't know. It's a lottery,
Chapman.
isn't it? It could, I mean, the 2 number 10s with Jackson in the role. That was the one against Burton at home, wasn't it? And they got some joy out of that one. So Norwood and Bond didn't really do much at all against Morecambe. Did they struggle to get into the game? Didn't they? Piggott seems quite far off it at the moment. So I'd be happy with the 2 10s in Selena and Chaplin and Jackson through the middle. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah.
I guess we assume Backinson will carry on in midfield with Sammy Morsey. And it'll be an interesting one at left back, wouldn't it? I mean, do you look to bring in Vincent Young? He's had some minutes in the under 23s on Monday. Could he potentially come in and get a start? Does he keep faith with Thompson? I mean, if Thompson doesn't play, who the hell's going to take our set pieces?
Chapman. That's why I'll kind of go for Chapman.
Okay, yeah. So we'll go from floating them to not beating the first man. Yeah, brilliant. Or maybe Matt Penny, like I say, he's back, he's fit again, and going forward, Penny's all right. He's not the best defensively, but I guess if it's going to be a game like Morecambe where the the left wing back's going to be pretty much an out and out left forward. Maybe he could come in and do some damage in the left hand side.
It will be interesting, won't it? We will see what happens there. Do you want to give us a prediction, Seb?
I'm going to go. We need to win. We know that. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to match the result of a couple of seasons ago.
I will join you with a 1-0. I think we'll win just to keep the agony alive. Although we did say at the end of the Flagship, we're going to keep the hope alive. So let's do that and go into Lincoln on Tuesday with a nearly full Portman Road with some optimism. Whatever happens, we will be back with the Flagship show on Monday morning. Seb and I will return along with Dave Diamond to talk about Fleetwood and how that game turned out. So do join us for that. Worth mentioning, as always, we are in these shows are in partnership with our good friends at the Greyhound. You've got a home match on Tuesday to take advantage of the hospitality at the Greyhound, and then we're back for Portsmouth next weekend as well.
Yeah.
So double bubble there. So do get down the Greyhound, Seb. It's best pre-match venue in town, isn't it?
Absolutely. Why would you go anywhere else? Grab yourself one of the booths, get there as soon as they open, grab one of the booths, order some food, enjoy some Ghost Ship or some Ease Up or whatever tickles your fancy. And yeah, why would you go anywhere else? You might find some of the Blue Monday group down there. Some of the Turnstile Blue guys are down there. It really is the only place to go pre-match and post-match.
There you go. What an endorsement you've got there. We mentioned the live Q&A show midweek available still to listen again. I listened to that earlier on my drive back from the Midlands. I enjoyed that very much so. The chat between Mikey, Dave and Joe. So do get involved in that if you haven't already. And as always, all the details you need about where our shows are, where our socials are, all that fun stuff. Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk. The itinerary for the week is there, if I remember, and all of the other bits and pieces of information available there. Excellent. Have we missed anything out in terms of plugging stuff, Seb? I think we've done.
No, just say your ITFC Women interview is still available. We're currently on a high with the women's side. So, yeah, by all means, get yourselves a listen to that with Natasha Thomas, Paige Peake, and Liv Smith from, was it Wednesday of last week? I think it was middle of last week.
Yeah,
so.
Put out Thursday. And the hope is that I'm hoping that I'm seen to be some kind of lucky omen. So maybe we'll have something before the 20th of March for West Ham as well. So keep your eyes peeled there on our socials and all that kind of fun stuff. Let's do Sliding Door. And I was able to get some respite from serial defeats in this stupid, pointless feature that I just hate. Let's have a look at the league table. Look, there he is, smug, right at the top there. Though defeat last time out, Seb. You obviously, but you didn't bank on Ben's kind of pleading right at the end of the feature to get some votes.
Or when he described it in the green room before we went live, I kind of thought, well, he's just going to blame Roy Keane's demise on David Diamond, so I should be all right there. But obviously, I didn't take into account how much that would resonate with people. So a worthy victory for Ben last week.
I think I would have picked Gio if I was doing it. I think
you're just saying that.
No, you're a clever guy.
You mean you didn't vote? Stuff. You mean you didn't vote for me?
I abstained. Yeah, I can't. Wow. I abstained. Brilliant. It wouldn't. It might have reduced the percentage delta a little bit that you lost by, but it wouldn't have made a huge amount of difference. So, and tell us where we're going back in time to this week.
So I think this is Is this the last of the managers from the last 20 years? Well, no, we haven't done Magilton yet, have we? Right. So this week, spoiler alert, is going to be the Paul Jewell era, a time that most of us have probably tried to erase from our minds. But we've done all the rest of them. So we're going to give Paul Jewell a go tonight. And I'm interested to see what you've got. Are we saying that the Barnsley game is a gimme? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, the 5-3 I think is peak Sliding Doors, Paul Jewell, just too obvious. I think that's in. I think anything in that top 10 compilation video that we put out. Yeah, I might need to retweet that because I did enjoy putting that together. We did do a Sliding Doors compilation that's on our it's in a playlist on the Blue Monday channel, but it's an old upload that's now on Ben's channel. But I think anything in that one, which does include the 5-3, I believe, and that was just ridiculous. I was at half time, I was kind of rubbing my hands together, like thinking, "Brilliant, we get the kind of the jeopardy of a new managerial appointment," and then blooming Keith Andrews and Jason Scotland and everyone screwed us over, and another year of misery. Do you want to go first or second?
I don't mind going first this week, so I'm going to go for just after Paul Jewell joins us. Obviously, Roy Keane gets sacked January 2011. Paul Jewell bottles the Arsenal game, which we end up winning 1-0, obviously. And then we into the January transfer window. So we do a bit of business. We bring in Jimmy Bullard. And one that got away was Charlie Austin. Now, I know people often say that he was never going to sign for us. It was all a ploy by his agent. But it was confirmed we had him in the building. And I'm very much of the belief of if you have somebody in the building, don't let them leave until they've signed on the dotted line. You know, if you've got them there, do what you need to do to get that deal done. At the time, he's a relatively up and coming from Swindon, isn't he? So it wasn't big money. I think he moved in the end. I've made a note here. I think it was about £1 million, 1.26 million. He ended up moving to Burnley for. And I just think if Jewell had bought him in, then he's of a really good age. We probably don't have to then go out and sign Chopra the following summer. Chopra did okay. Paul Taylor. Chopra did okay in his first season with us, didn't he? But, he was part of the, what do the kids call it? The banter era? Is it the banter era of ITFC? He's got his off-field stuff. He's got the trip to Newcastle with Jimmy Bullard. He's got telling gangsters at the training ground that Aaron Cresswell's him and stuff. It's part of an era we'd rather forget. So I think if we can bring in Charlie Austin, get that deal done, then potentially Paul Jewell's time could have been very, very different. Because although we remember him for being absolutely awful, and I am in no means a Paul Jewell apologist, I think he was absolutely rubbish. He did okay in those 6 months after he took over from Roy Keane. We play 22 games, we win 10, we draw 4, and we lose 8. And there's a spell, I think, in either March or April where it's like one defeat in 5 or 6. And I seem to remember at the time there were a few murmurings of maybe putting together a bit of a challenge for sort of the top 10 and stuff. So I just think a young, hungry, proven, Charlie Austin striker could have made that bit of difference. And we all know what he went and did afterwards. He went to Burnley in the end. He was exactly a 1-in-2 man. He made 82 appearances and scored 41 goals in the league, I think it was, and then got a big money move for £4 million to QPR. And at that time, don't forget, Evans is still investing in the side. So we bring in £4 million potentially for him after a couple of years if we're still in Division 1 at the time, the Championship. And potentially Evans reinvest that money. So I think if we'd assigned Charlie Austin, potentially Paul Jewell's time could have been very different at Town.
Yeah, did you blame Simon Clegg for the Charlie Austin debacle?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't get anything done. Do you remember when Roy Keane's autobiography came out afterwards? He said we had Sean Derry in the building and we never rung him back, and we had a Irish left back, can't remember who it was, in the building, and we never called him back. And at that time, we were just a bit of a joke, weren't we?
Yeah.
But if they're there, if they're sat in the office, they've had the tour of the training ground, they're at Portman Road, wherever they are, if they're in the building, do not let them leave until they sign that dotted line. Yeah,
we didn't learn our mistakes from Kevin Phillips, didn't we? Different owners at that point, though. So, yeah, there's a good old 11 that you could possibly put together for players who are at Portman Road and don't go on to sign them. So my pick, I mean, I'm really close to doing Sliding Doors moment in the Paul Jewell era is the point where Marcus Evans goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going to appoint Paul Jewell. What a great idea!" But I can't pick that because it's nothing to do with Paul Jewell. So I'm going to put out there the 7-1 defeat to Peterborough because frankly he should have been sacked at that point. What an utter embarrassment, a shambles that situation was. Let me remind you that and admittedly he's only been appointed the season before in the 10-11 season, but the season concludes with 5 goals shipped at home to Norwich, 4 goals conceded away at Swansea. We beat Preston. There's a bit of respite at the end of April in the 10-11 season where we beat Preston. Then we ship 4 goals at Leicester. We've got a real problem in keeping goals out at the other end. We start the next season, the next campaign, the 11-12, with a really optimistic start with that win at Bristol City, if folk remember that, with goals from Chopra and Lee Martin. But it soon derails. And I just think the the warning signs were there for me. There's the defeat to Hull, which is 1-0, which is fair enough. But then we ship 5 goals at home to Southampton, the game of the floodlight failure. And then we go into this match against Peterborough and lose 7-1. And what's worse is the discipline is just gone as well. There's red cards for Lee Martin. There's a red card, I think, for Tommy Smith in there. What an absolute...
Don't we take the lead as well in that game?
I think,
I think Keith Andrews puts us 1-0
scores a
up,
belter, doesn't he? He scores a long ranger, which we never ever see anymore, because it's just he scores after 23 minutes. Paul Taylor, and that's probably why we signed him, scores twice. Tomlin scores a hat trick. McCann gets 2 as well. It's just, and it was on Sky as well. I mean, what peak embarrassment there. And what's more is, Paul Jewell was the king of getting a result just when things are looking really bad and he might get the can. He manages to pick out a result, and we beat Leeds after losing to Peterborough, and then we go on a little bit of a mini rally, and then there's this run in November where we lose every single game at home. We then lose, and then it's just looking at these fixtures, it's ridiculous. And then suddenly there's a swing around as well. But he's gone for me. You lose 7-1 to Peterborough in the Championship.
But at that point, he's only 6 months into the job, and they just backed him in the window to sign the likes of Nathan Ellington and Chopra, and they've backed him big. They can't possibly sack him. What was it, 4 games into the season?
I think. Well, I go back to my original point. He shouldn't have been appointed in the first place. Frankly, out of his depth, totally out of his depth. But I just think there is enough to lose 5-2 at home and then 7-1 away.
That's what we had, like Ibrahim Sonko and Inga Marson as our centre halves at the time.
Yeah, what
2 free transfers and nobody else wanted. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and that's when the investment's supposedly happening. There's a lot. Yeah,
well, he spent big on. That summer. I mean, Chopra comes in. We signed Bullard full time. God, how happy
Emmanuel Thomas comes in.
Well, because we sold Connor Wickham, didn't we, and reinvested some of the money, I guess. But we had that really old, weird diamond formation midfield of Bullard, Andrews, Lee Bowyer, and somebody else. Yeah, other teams just ran rings round us, didn't they?
Absolutely. I'm going to swear, because we're 43 odd minutes in. Absolute shit show under Paul Jewell. He should have been sacked well before that Barnsley game. He should definitely have been sacked. That Barnsley game, as I said, we can't go anywhere near that because that's just a gimme. But what an absolute joke that was. And you think of all the money that Evan, that 5 million double bid for George Boyd and Paul Taylor. We end up with Paul Taylor.
Yeah.
We
tried to sign a couple of guys from Portsmouth who would have actually been good buys. Was it Joel Ward, who's now at Palace as a right back?
Yeah.
Somebody else, a defender, I think, went to Leeds, and they would have been good buys. And again, we just couldn't get the
Tom
deals
Pearce,
done.
Is it? I
think?
Maybe.
Yeah, we just couldn't get the deals done, could we? And we end up shopping in the bargain basement.
They knew they didn't want to go and play. But as much as I bemoan, there's two bits of business that he got right. He signed Aaron Cresswell, didn't he? Yeah. And I think he signed Luke Chambers as well.
Yeah. They're the two, aren't they?
There you go. But so, as always, we'll put the Twitter poll out, and you can decide whether it was letting Charlie Austin leave Portman Road without signing on the line, or a 7-1 humbling at Peterborough United, live on Sky, and we'll see how we get on next week. There you go. Any more to add? Any pleas for votes, Seb, or anything like that? Or are you happy to trust our wise and learned audience?
I will put my faith in the audience. They've never let me down. The Twitter followers are excellent. So please use your heads and vote and think, are you really going to sack a manager 4 games into a season where you've just heavily backed him?
Just think 5-1 defeat to Norwich. Should have gone
because we didn't have Charlie Austin. If we have Charlie Austin, that could be 6-5 to Ipswich.
Brilliant. Yeah, there you go. I think I'm not going to say anything and just leave you with that logic. That's the logic that you're voting for if you vote for Sam. Anyway, here's There you go. That is your lot. Thank you for joining us and sticking around if you have so far. Seb, as always, thank you for your research and your input and your sage wisdom about all things Paul Jewell. And we will look forward to chatting to you on the Flagship show. Just a reminder, as always, head down to the Greyhound, our partner for the pre-match shows. Join us for the Flagship, as we mentioned, Monday morning. That will be out with Seb, and Dave and I. And as always, we will probably. Are you thinking about doing a post-match after Lincoln on Tuesday, or is that?
Me and Mikey discussed it, yeah, because we're the two that won't be at the game given our geographical limitations. So we can happily jump on like we did after the Cheltenham game, but hopefully it'll be a better result.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So yeah, we'll put details out if that's happening. Join on the way home. But yeah, Seb, do you want to? I'll once again thank you for all of your hard work, and thank you everyone for joining us. Safe travels up if you are travelling up to Fleetwood, and do say hello to Seb if you see him. And I'll hand over to you for the final word.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening and watching. Safe journey up there. Quite a few people are meeting in the Fleetwood official bar at the ground, so get yourselves in there for a pint or some food pre-match. And as always, come on, you Blues.